Welcome to Equipping Leaders, a podcast where I share tools and perspectives to equip leaders in self-development and team connection. I am your host, Natasha, and I am excited to share today's episode with you. Our episode today is a conversation with speaker, coach, and Toastmaster Seth Greenwald on impromptu speaking, making bold choices, and using all of your strengths to forge your path. Hello, Seth. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you today. Could you introduce yourself and tell us your style of leadership?
Good day to you, Natasha. It's good to be here on the Equipping Leaders podcast. I am Seth Greenwald. I'm also known as Sherpa Seth, your friendly guide up to the peak of public speaking excellence. And I have a complicated, complex relationship with my past. I started out as an engineer. I'm still an engineer by profession, but I'm an artist by heart, and I'm a public speaker. That's my passion. So when I say I'm a Sherpa, I put my public speaking hat on. I put my Sherpa hat. If this was video, you would see my Sherpa hat. I actually have one, and it's exciting to be able to do all these things in my life. I didn't start as a leader. Certainly, I was an engineer. I was a creative type. I thought of myself as a DIY guy, a do-it-yourself guy. I enjoyed coming up with things on my own and solving problems on my own. So I would say I wasn't a born leader. I was not a born leader because I was an analytical engineer, and that suits me fine. In fact, I can tell you a story about being a mechanical engineer designer. One of my first jobs after engineering school was at a company called Geo International, and they were designers of furniture. And I was their first designer. They didn't even open yet, but they needed designs. They needed lights, they needed furniture, and I'm like, great, I can do that for you. And since I was like the first in line, they hired me as an engineer, and they put me in the back room of their showroom. And I was all alone, drawing, coming up with ideas, happy as a clam. And then there was a party, the grand opening, and they say, I can go to the party, right? And they go, no, you're our designer. You have to stay in the back room. And they didn't even let me go into the party. But you know what? I was okay with that because I was not a social leader back in the day. So when you say my leadership style, it's developed over many years. I do work as a project manager for the Army Corps of Engineers. So I do have to be a leader because I have a team of designers, team of engineers. And I think my style is one of a servant leader, where I'm not out in the front. I'm just helping my team succeed by facilitating their leadership and their collaborating together. You know, one of my favorite acronyms is TEAM, right? T-E-A-M. And I'm sure you know that means together, everyone achieves more. And I really believe in that. So I'm very inclusive. I don't see myself as separate from the team. I'm part of the team, and I just help them become better. That's me in a nutshell.
I love it. I often love to talk to leaders about just different styles and just different approaches to things. And you highlighted that the leader is not always the most boisterous, most out front, most, whatever person that classically great man theory, when that was developed back in the 30s, has led us to believe. But that we as leaders, it's our job to eliminate boundaries, remove obstacles, help make sure the people around us are successful and can actually do their jobs. And I love how you highlighted that in what you were just saying.
Yeah, it's not me to tell my team members how to do their job. They are very professional. They all are professional engineers. I'm just the engineering manager. So I don't have a degree in structural engineering. I don't have a degree in civil engineering. I don't have a degree in geotechnical engineering. I'm the guy that puts the soup together. I stir it up. I stir the pot, make sure that it stirs well, it's warmed up, it tastes good. And that's my style. I really enjoy being in the background, serving them. It's an ego thing. If you want to be in front, if you want all the spotlight to be on you, your ego is going to feel good. But if I don't see that as the right approach to teamwork and leadership. You got to respect the people that work for you. and let them work together, come up with solutions. One of the reasons why my team likes me so much, and this is a story that I was, quote unquote, competing against another engineering manager. And one of my team, the team is shared by all the managers, right? It's not, I don't have a dedicated team. And one of the structural engineer on my team said, Seth, we like you better than Bob. I'm like, oh, great. Why do you like me better? It's because you listen to us. You respect us. Listening is such a critical skill for leaders.
Absolutely. I love to talk to people about listening skills. When you can listen to people, make sure that they feel heard and valued. I absolutely agree and believe that's one of the cornerstones of a good leader.
Are you actually listening, right? When you're hearing people, right? When you're actually hearing what they say, or you're just thinking about what you want to say, how you want to respond to them. Are you actually listening all in, or are you just listening to yourself? In my improv courses and in my webinars, I go over how to listen all in. It's an exciting thing because that's one of the things I learned going from engineer to engineering manager. I learned how to listen, and listening is a very key skill for leaders, because what's the point if you're not listening to your team? What is the point of having a team if you don't listen to the team? So, but again, like you say, it's hard to listen because you're always listening to yourself first. You have a lot of thoughts in your head, right? And if you don't distinguish between what your thoughts are and what their ideas are, what they're saying to you, it's difficult. It's very difficult. And I often say, you and I are both in Toastmasters, and I love Toastmasters. I've been in Toastmasters for 10 years and love it. Public speaking is my jam. But I also often say, maybe we should call it a segment called public listening. Maybe we should really focus on the listening skill, because when you communicate, it's not just talking, speaking, right? It's listening and then speaking, right? Listening and then speaking, kind of like a dance, doing the cha-cha with your audience, and whoever your audience is. It could be your customers or your engineer team or whoever, but it's not about listening. Communication is all about listening and speaking.
So you said that you were very much behind the scenes, you were the engineer, analytical, and now you're the leader of engineers, and you also lead a lot of other things, I know, within Toastmasters and within workshops and your own business and all of that. Was there a moment or a specific event that really empowered you to step into that role of a leader?
Well, yeah, there is. There is a moment that I can think about where you got to be able to lead yourself, right, before you can lead others. Back in the late 90s, I decided that I was a good illustrator because I was a good designer, and design you have to be able to draw. And back then I was drawing freehand, learning how to do it on the computer, but mostly it was done by freehand back in the 90s. And I decided that I wanted to start my own greeting card company because I was a good illustrator and I had some humor. So I decided to do some humorous greeting cards, and this was before, right before the internet. So I was drawing them by hand and having a great time in the corner of my apartment in New York City. I put a shoji screen around my desk, my drafting desk, and I was happy as a clam, just creating alone in the corner. My wife would come in and bring me tea every now and then, but I really enjoyed myself just being alone, creating, drawing my cards. And then once I got to like 50 different cards, I'm like, all right, now what? And I decided, well, let me give it a shot and develop my own business. And let me call it, in a creative way, SBG Cards, because that's my initials. I guess I had a little ego. So SBG Cards, what do? You can't do everything yourself. I was learning, even though I was a DIY guy, I couldn't do everything myself. I needed a salesperson. I needed a marketing person. I needed a shipping department. I needed all these different skill sets that I didn't have. So what do you do as a leader? You hire other people who know how to do that. So my wife became my vice president of marketing. My mother-in-law became my shipping department. My father was the finance department. And we hired a bunch of salespeople around the country to get the card into the retail stores. So we had a cadre of sales people, and from Alaska to California to Florida. We were in a lot of the little mom and pop card shops. That's where you had to be back then. The internet wasn't happening. It was right at the edge. I had a business. I was leading. One point, I'm like, yeah, I can do this leadership thing. I just don't need to do everything myself. All I have to do is understand what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. That's the story of SBG cards.
I really love that point where the delegation is so important, but even more importantly than that, like you knew what your strengths were and what like gave you energy and what part you were inspired to do. And I always tell people, like, if possible, like outsource the rest, right? Be in your zone of strength, because that's where you're going to perform the best and add the most to the team.
You're so right. Yeah, you're so right. I'm all about strength. I'm all about improving. I'm all about improving and developing other things that I'm weak at as well. But yeah, you're right. You can't do it all yourself. You gotta delegate.
So you have a really diverse background of engineering, designing, writing, Toastmastering, all these different things. So could you tell us about more of your story that led you to where you are now?
Oh yeah, I'd love to tell you my Ivy story. IVY. Well, when I was in engineering school, I went to Cooper Union in New York City, and they were in the East Village. And this was back in the 80s, 90s, and there was a punk rock scene, and everyone was cool and hip. And I would look out doing my engineering studies, my calculus and my trigonometry and my thermodynamics, and see an artist wearing a cool fedora hat or with a punk rocker with the spikes and the nails coming out. Like, that's cool. I want to do that. But I did not do that. I did not put spikes in my hair nor nails. I was just an engineering student. Sometimes I would wear a funky hat, but that's as far as I took it. But that planted the seed in me that I can do engineering and art simultaneously. So I started to get interested in drawing. And I was in my bedroom on 4th Avenue and 10th Street. I was on the 3rd floor. The apartment was 3GG. We often said that I had 2 other roommates, and 3GG stood for 3 groovy guys. There was an ivy plant on my ledge in my bedroom. And I'm gonna draw that ivy. It's very simple. It's just a pot and just a bunch of leaves. I can do that. Natasha, when I looked down after my first attempt, it was sad. It was a sad ivy plant. It looked like a cartoon character of a plant. It was not something that I was proud of. But I'm telling you, I really wanted to draw. I really wanted to draw better. I really wanted to improve my drawing. So I was a big reader back then, reader of books, and I still am. I like reading, DIY, improving by reading. I do take a lot of courses, but I still like to read improvement books. And one of the books I found was called Drawing on the Right Side of Your Brain. Ever hear that by Betty Edwards? And in that, she described how to bypass your analytical left brain. It's engineering, right? Engineering is all about left brain analysis and intellect and logic. And she said, you don't have to draw from your left brain. If you draw from your left brain, your ivy plant is going to look like a cartoon. That's natural. You have to be able to draw from the right brain. And the right brain is, the part that sees things clearly without words. You have to be able to see, that's not a plant. That's not an ivy plant. That's just a thing. It's a thing with no name, and you got to draw it. You got to really see it. So that book changed my life, because after I read it, I redrew my ivy plant, and Natasha, it was an amazing transformation. One day the ivy plant looked like a cartoon. The next day the ivy plant was so realistic, was popping off the page. I'm like, whoa, I got something here. There's something about the brain that can transform, if you can access it, can transform your life, the way you see the things around you. It's not just about the formulas and math and science. It's really about seeing. And that kind of got me hooked, right, into being able to really see and really draw and really understand things from my right brain. I was able to do left brain writing, left brain calculation, and right brain intuition and right brain gestalt. So after engineering school, I wanted to continue that. I went to Pratt for industrial design. And Pratt is one of the oldest, artiest design schools in the country. In the Bauhaus from the 20s, and the German designers, a few of them came over and started the industrial design program back in the 1920s. And so it's all about art. So I really started to sculpt and paint and do a lot of fun things that I never thought an engineer would do. And I graduated with my master's in industrial design, which sounds very mechanical, right? And very industrial, right? But it wasn't. It was about seeing clearly. So that is how I incorporate engineering and designing. I'm a creative guy. I keep on, then I got into writing. I wrote 3 books on creativity and public speaking. It was just a progression. I just want it all, Natasha. I want everything in life. I want to experience everything. And it started all from that little old ivy plant on my ledge.
Now you have Sherpa Seths Community of Bold Explorers. So how did that come to be?
Well, that came to be when I was going through a career crisis, maybe 15 years ago. When, remember in 2008, 2009, you had that financial crisis, the end of the world, everything was exploding. And I lost my job as a designer, so I was looking for the next step. What to do? There was not a lot of jobs in construction. One day, I just sat on my couch with my dog and said, this is the lowest point in my life. From now on, I'm going to try everything and anything that comes into my head. So I started Postmasters, I started project management, I started playing the guitar, singing, whatever came to mind, I tried. I started my own website called Creative Warrior Secrets. And that's where the community of bold explorers came about. People like me who enjoy trying new things and being creative and just going on a journey of discovery. That's what I think life is. Journey of discovery. And my vehicle is public speaking and impromptu communication. So if you want to become a member of my Bold Explorers, I still have my website, creativewarriorsecrets.com, and I produce a monthly news memo, or a newsletter I call the Muse memo, and everyone's invited. Check it out. You can go to my Facebook group called Creatively Speaking, and then you can become a member of Seths Community of Bold Explorers.
I just love your story around that too. It's very much like the rise of the phoenix, right? Where you're like, life is not working out as it is now, but then you changed your mindset and said, I want to try all these different things. And just the willingness to say yes, the willingness to move forward, and the willingness to just try, I think also speaks volumes about an individual's character. So I really love that story.
I've always been a continuous learner, always improving. Improv to Improve is my latest webinar where my community of bold explorers are going on a journey with me, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to just go with the flow and discover what the life has to offer us.
So you do a lot of webinars and workshops around impromptu speaking and other topics. What is impromptu speaking, and why is it a valuable skill for leaders?
Well, impromptu speaking is a game changer for me, because public speaking is good. You can get up on stage and you could prepare your speech and you can offer your speech to your audience and script it out and plan it out and recite it perfectly. But that's not really connecting with your life, is it? It's not really connecting with the present moment. If you really want to get in the game, impromptu speaking will do that for you. It took me from, the DIY guy watching people playing and doing their thing at work, and I wasn't prepared to jump in. But impromptu speaking, improv, helped me embrace the moment, become the player that I always wanted to play. It's like a football game. You can either be in the stands or on the sidelines, or you can be a player on the field. I always wanted to be a player on the field. And I tell you, impromptu speaking is my vehicle for getting there. It's really helped me embrace reality. One of my favorite quotes is, "Nothing in life is constant except change." It's hard for an engineer who wants to be perfect and wants to know all the right answers to deal with change, that constant change. Power tool in my communication toolbox is impromptu speaking. It's helped me to jump into situations where my team is just there, and who knows what's going on. I need as a manager, I just need to jump in and be part of it. I can't prepare. I don't, whatever's happening, I'm available. And I've discovered that that's what impromptu speaking has helped me. It's really changed my career, changed my life. It's my tool that's helped me cross the chasm, deep and wide chasm between design and design management. Without impromptu speaking, without improv, I would still be a designer in the back room, all alone, not going to any parties at all.
I also have a great appreciation for impromptu speaking because I know that in my leadership experience, people will ask you the most off-topic, just random questions seemingly, and they're asking you because you're the leader, and you don't need to necessarily have an answer, right? Because nobody can know everything, but at the same time, knowing how to even just respond in the moment and not completely shut down, I think is really valuable.
Well, one of the biggest things that I learned as a leader, like you say, is not to know that you don't know everything. And one of the biggest things I learned to say as a leader is, I don't know. If you can say, I don't know, the simple 3 words, it's a game changer, because then it starts a dialogue instead of a monologue. And then you invite your team to offer solutions. So when I learned how to say, I don't know, I encourage anyone to try that, especially engineer managers who think they need to know all the answers. Hard. It felt like a failure. But the more you do it, the more you see the magnificence of those 3 little words. Really helped me bring my team into the fold and help me jump into the play along with my team.
Yes, and there's just an authenticity to it. And I really liked what you said, how it starts a dialogue. And so that way the communication is not just a monologue. I think that's a really powerful thing because someone in the room probably knows. So if you just say, I don't know, either people will start to brainstorm and come up with things and then everybody will know, or maybe someone in the room does know and can let everybody know.
It opens up the conversation. It opens up the room. It opens up the playing field. It's fun. That's what's fun about it. You're playing with other people. You're playing along. You're letting them play. You're not doing it yourself. It's all a big mishmash. It's all a big soup. It's all a big dance. And what's better than dancing? The communication dance is one of my favorite ways to express myself and help my team express themselves.
Are there other workshops that you lead that have a different focus that's not impromptu speaking?
Last year, I really became the Sherpa in August of 2020 because I did my first 20 or so band of creative explorers, bold explorers, up to the peak of public speaking. So it wasn't about impromptu, it was about public speaking, traditional public speaking, where you have to prepare and you need a message and you need a structure to your speech and you need to deliver it authentically and you need to engage your audience. So I have a 5-step program called Page to Stage, and that's where I took it was my first program, and I'm still offering that. My 2 programs are Page to Stage, and the new one is Improv to Improve, and that is the 6th step in public speaking, the spontaneity. After you prepare, how do you deliver it as if you were just speaking it, if you're just creating it on the spot? So that's called Improv to Improve, and I'm happy to announce that is happening this year, 2022.
I really like that. First off, there are steps. You're offering leaders and people great tools for one of the most important things we do, which is communication. I think that, workshops that when you leave that you feel so inspired and you're like, now I know what to actually do to improve this thing. So I think that's really impactful.
I'm still an engineer, so I give step-by-step instructions on how to be more in the moment, more spontaneous. It's funny, right? That you can actually learn how to be spontaneous. You can actually prepare to be spontaneous. One of my favorite quotes is by Mark Twain. He says, in order to tell a good impromptu speech, I need 3 weeks to prepare it. It's true. That was one of the things that inspired me to give my program, because it's not only about preparing your speech, it's about how to make it seem like you're delivering it on the spot and how to engage with your audience right there. Rally is the cutting edge of time. How do you stay on that edge? How do you stay on the cutting edge of that knife? You don't drop into the past. You don't go into the future. It's hard, but impromptu speaking is the game changer. It's a skill you need for almost everything that you want to improve in your corporate world or non-corporate world, wherever you work.
And earlier in this session, you talked about being able to work on your own and being super happy about that. But then also in the past, I've heard you speak a lot about introversion. So how do you describe Seth's version of being an introvert?
Natasha, it's just enjoying being alone to create, enjoying your create time. It's not negative. I'm not talking about social awkwardness. I'm talking about going in, enjoying your thoughts, enjoying reading, enjoying writing. We can't really create by committee. So it's just enjoying being alone. And I can tell you the books I've written, I've done it on a train filled with people, but I was still alone, still in my thoughts, looking out the window, just accepting what was going through my head. You know, the way I write, it's a lot about connecting with your muse. You know, a lot of people say, well, that's crazy. That doesn't exist. I tell you, it does. If you become better at impromptu communication, you'll discover your muse, which I call your inner creative warrior. And the book that I wrote is called Answering the Call of Your Creative Warrior. It's how to discover your muse. My muse wrote that book for me on a train going to work for the Army Corps of Engineers. Every day I would say, okay, muse, from 8 o'clock to 8:20, we're going to write. And we wrote. And my only job was to open up and capture those ideas on paper. I was like an empty vessel. My job was to capture those words on paper that my muse was giving me, and later I would edit it. When you improve your skill of being able to embrace the present moment, you'll find that you have an inner creative warrior that works for you, connects you to your muse, and helps you to defeat your inner critic. You can't do that. Why are you even trying? You're no good. You're a failure. Well, your inner creative warrior is the opposite of your inner critic, and it will help you live the life that you want to live. So that's my book called Answering the Call of Your Creative Warrior, and that came out last year.
I absolutely love that reframe on introversion too, that it's just going like within yourself and kind of connecting with that creative side. I love that.
Creativity is the key to everything. In my webinars, I talk a lot about a concept called BIT mindset. And what BIT is an acronym, stands for Build It Together. What do you do when you create? You're building something as you go along. You're not necessarily sure where you're going to head up or what it's going to be, but you're building it as you go along. And it's really the process of creation, and you can do it together. You can collaborate with your team. You can build a story, you can build a process, you can build a solution, you can build a conversation, whatever you want to build, you can build with your team. So I call it the Build It Together mindset, the BIT mindset. That's the basis of improv, right? That's the basis of what I teach, what I call impromptu communication. It's the BIT mindset, where you see your current predicament as a journey of discovery. You're not necessarily sure where you're going to head up, where you're going, but you know you're going somewhere, and you know that you have to listen. You know, listen to yourself, listen to the present moment, and listen to the people around you. And you're building your reality as you go along. And that's the basis of improv.
What leadership advice would you offer current leaders in any organization?
I think to recap what we spoke about here, you really got to listen to your team. Getting out of your head, getting into the present moment. Respect their expertise. You got to learn from everyone. You can learn from anyone. If you get your ego out of the way, you can learn from anyone. You just got to know how to see them and clearly without the interference of your own biases. I would say you want to recognize your team's efforts in public. If they do something good, you recognize their efforts in front of everybody. You're the manager. You're kind of like the cheerleader for your team. You don't take that recognition, you give it to your team. I would say lastly, it's not about you, it's about your team. Tap down your ego, listen to your team, be a facilitator of success, and you'll go a long way.
And then when I think about people or leaders specifically who are wildly successful, even ones who maybe were kind of more public, like a Dwight Eisenhower, it was his ability to get people to communicate well and help understand what their strengths were and what their role was and different things that ultimately made well, in that case, the world and America successful. But there's this piece where I love when you said it's not about you, because even if you are a more public facing type of leader, a CEO or whatever, there's still this, you can't be successful on your own, right? Like you absolutely need all those other people. And how are you as the leader empowering them?
Exactly. Together, everyone achieves more. Right? We always go back to that acronym. Together, everyone achieves more. You can only do that if you get yourself out of the equation, right? If you're not the center, you're not the hub of the wheel, you're looking from above and you're making sure the wheel doesn't fall apart.
Do you have a book or a resource that you recommend to others?
Oh, sure. I've written 3 books, 2 on creativity, called Secrets of a Creative Warrior. My first one, Answering the Call of Your Creative Warriors. The second one and third one is called An Engineer's Formula for Public Speaking Excellence. And that is available to your listeners for free.
Awesome. Thank you.
It's something I enjoy giving away. If they go to my website, creativewarriorsecrets.com/books, you can see the 3 books and they can download the Engineer's Formula, Public Speaking Excellence. Again, that's the 5 steps. We go through the preparation and we go through the messaging and we go through structure and we go through authenticity and we go through engaging with your audience. So it's you can digital copy, you can download it. My pleasure.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm very excited. If people want to reach out to you, how can they find you? And what workshops and programs do you have coming up?
Oh, sure. Yeah, they could always find me on LinkedIn, Seth B. Greenwald. Well, you can email me at seth@creativewarriorsecrets.com. And then I can tell you about the programs. The new one I'm excited about is Improv to Improve. If you want to be part of that, just reach out to me.
This has been amazing. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Equipping Leaders podcast. For more leadership development content, you can visit my website, natashacheyenne.com, where you will find my leadership journal with dozens of articles and the Cultivation Cafe, which is always growing and has leadership frameworks, book recommendations, and inclusion and mental health resources. You can also follow me on Instagram at novel_Natasha or at Equipping Leaders Podcast and on Twitter at Natasha Cheyenne. Join me next week for another episode.